Hey, hello and welcome everybody. Today we are talking about what is a birth chart reading, and I would like to share with you a little bit my specific approach to it. So let's say you would like to have a birth chart reading from an astrologer. What you have to share with him is 3 types of information. He needs to know your time when you were born. You don't necessarily need to have it, but it would be ideal. The date that you were born and the place of birth. So these 3 things are ideal that the astrologer can calculate your birth chart. Back in the days, the astrologer actually had to do that by hand. Now we have computers and programs and it's super easy to do it yourself, and I will show you in the future how to do that. But for today, let's speak more about the birth chart and the birth chart reading. So basically the birth chart looks like that, and basically when you look at it the first time, it's like, what? That, and that's completely normal. That's why you need an astrologer. But let me explain to you the essentials of it, just that you have an idea a little bit what this represents. So you have the 12 zodiac signs around here, which are represented by symbols and 4 different colors, which are the 4 different elements. Then you also have the planets here around, which are basically your natal planets when you were born. Then you have the blue and the red lines, which are called the aspects. And then you have the 12 houses that are going around your chart. So basically, these are the elements, the 4 fundamental elements to understand a birth chart. And these are considered to be foundational knowledge. And in the future, I will make videos about each individual one that you understand a little bit more how it functions. But for today, let's just say a birth chart is basically when you are born and you're coming out of the womb of your mother and you're taking your first breath. Maybe you cry a bit, but basically in that moment, snapshot to simplify it from the sky, and that is your birth chart. So that basically represents the complexity of your personality. So you can even imagine, like, in that moment, like if you say, like on an energetical level, on a vibrational level, you can see in the birth chart what kind of energies have been alive. And if you learn how to read them, you can interpret how the personality is functioning. So basically you could say it represents your gifts, your struggles, your challenges, your karma, and your potentials that you have been coming with into this lifetime. And then an astrologer can interpret it for you. So basically it's a little bit like, where are you coming from? So you can also see about the past lives, and who are you meant to be? Like, what's the potential that's dormant within you, and probably the life lessons that you have to learn inside this body during this lifetime. And this picture of the birth chart that you just have seen before looks for everybody different, and it's not just a picture which you would say, 2D and that's it. It's much more something that's alive. So it's like you, something that's constantly evolving and changing. So therefore, when people ask me like, so 1 session is enough? Like, yes, I mean, the first session is definitely very interesting and gives you a lot of information, but normally it's like within 3 to 6 months you can have another one, because you are changing, your surrounding is changing, and therefore the learning lessons are different. So it's not something that, like, some people think like you have a reading with an astrologer and then you have been told the wisdom of the stars and that's it. Now you know it and it will never change again. It's in the contrary, it's like never ending, it's constantly learning more, and it's like life. So in that sense, an astrologer is basically helping you to become the best version of yourself. But we have to say there are different astrologers out there. So we have different lineages. So we have, for example, Chinese astrology, we have Indian astrology, we have Mayan astrology, we have the Hellenistic astrology, we have so many different types of astrology out there. So you could say you have to find your own kind of personal astrologers that you resonate with. And it's a little bit like food. You have to try them out. You have to see who you resonate with, what you like. And there is not like one astrologer that is right and another astrologer that is wrong. It's just different perspective, different insights. And I would say I have learned constantly from different astrologers. And there is, although, 2 approaches which I personally have to say I tend more to one approach. And basically what we can say then, there's like 2 kind of astrologers out there, no matter what's their background, but some are more scientific or like the research type of astrology, and the other one is more the counselor. Some of people, of course, they have a bit of both, but just to understand, The research astrologer is more somebody who is studying the cycles of the planets, is understanding what it means in general. It's somebody that's almost like a scientist or an university professor, studies a lot, reads a lot of books and has a lot of information and is giving that information to you. Now, for me personally, maybe you can already hear there's a slight judgment there. I find that interesting, and I think definitely you have to learn astrology. You have to go deeper in it, and you have to read books, and you have to consume information. But ultimately, it's about the counseling, and that means it's not just about me, what I know. It's about you, and that means like you are the expert. And that's for some astrologers that would be like, what? Of course not. Like, the expert is like the chart, and the chart holds all the wisdom. In my approach or in my experience, I would say it depends on the level of consciousness, and the level of consciousness is inside of you, and that means you are the expert. You have been for the longest amount of time in your own body, and therefore you know how you feel and how you perceive. So therefore, in a counseling session, it's not just about me, what I know, but much more about, in my approach, like we're just coming together, we're just having a conversation basically. So I have studied and I have learned a lot, and I have given over the last 8 years almost 1,000 readings with clients online or in person, and it's such a beautiful thing to learn more. I feel like I have learned so much from books and from different teachers, but mostly I'm learning from one-to-one readings where we have a personal interaction, and there really I have to actually make that wisdom applicable to your life. So it's therefore I have a lot of questions I want to know, like what's your background, what's your passion, like what happened in this year to you, like where are you struggling with, what's difficult for you, and how do you feel about a certain theme. Let's say like I'm approaching something in astrology and I have a certain question, like how do you experiencing that, and from there basically we're just going deeper. And therefore the chart is more kind of a direction, or it's almost like it can show me parts of your personality or of your life that you wouldn't be willing to share with me. You wouldn't go into that because maybe you don't think it's important or you don't even see it, and therefore I can ask important questions, and suddenly we find ourselves unwrapped into a beautiful 75 minutes to 1.5 hour conversation where you and me will forget the time. We will go to domains where you probably haven't shared with your best friends. Maybe I hope that I normally can come to a point where you feel very confirmed of who you are meant to be, of what you already feeling you're resonating with, and you feeling that I have given you a language for something that's already alive within you, and therefore that gave you more clarity to even step more into who you already thought you want to be, or you see now with our conversation where or what is holding you back, what is the challenge, what is the difficulty, and why you're struggling, what is a life lesson that you have to learn and embrace, and where this is not you and you just have to let that go and actually can choose or make a choice consciously of where you want to focus and what you have to let go. And that's basically the way I'm working with people. So now that's just the style I'm working with, and I'm not so much into prediction. I'm not so much about, when do you find your twin flame or your life partner and how many children will you have. I'm much more prone to like, hey, this is a potential that you have to work with. But if you're not doing anything, then it just remains bare potential. And that's really what my biggest passion is about, revealing potential and forcing you to see that only through work you can liberate that potential and actually turn into who you are meant to be and who you want to become. So becoming aligned with who you already want to become in that sense. So there are different types of readings that you can have. So for example, like a birth chart reading, you can just come, like a lot of people just come and they're curious or they have an intention, they want to speak about something in specific. Or we can speak about the solar return. Solar return is simply basically your birthday, and you can kind of look what's coming the next year ahead of me, what are my themes, what are my topics that I have to work on. And then you also have the Saturn return, which is happening with kind of 28 to 30 years on, which a lot of people actually reach out and want to learn more. And in general, like you can always come, because we can always speak about what's alive right now and what's coming next. But these are some of the specific names for some of the specific readings I'm offering. offering. And then also what I personally like a lot is actually Synastry Charts. So Synastry is a strange name simply for, let's say, you come to me with your boyfriend, or you come to me with your girlfriend, and the two of you want to understand each other, but also yourself, and then the relationship that you have between of you. Or for example, a young man came to me and he wanted to know, why have I chosen this family? Like, why am I born with this mother and this father? Like, what are the themes that are in my life and in my childhood that came up? Or I have parents that come to me with their child. They want to understand like what's coming up in their education, in their how to teach and, you know, parent their child, what's coming up, how can they guide their child better. And that's for me actually the biggest passion, because one-on-one is something that I have learned over the years to become more and more comfortable, to find language with and having a good connection. But when you have more than one person, let's say a couple, or I had last week, I had like two parents, so a mother and a father with their son, and he was 20, or no, he was 18. And that's the most amazing thing, because then it's not just about speaking to that young adult, you know, adolescent. It's also speaking from the perspective of the protective mother who is worried that her son is taking drugs. But then it's also a perspective from the father where he wants to teach his son how to use drugs, you know, how to use mushrooms and medicine work. So it's like three different languages to approach. Or you have a relationship where you have a struggle between the man and the woman that are together since a few years. And they love each other deeply, but they somehow don't understand each other. So in her perspective, she would say something in one way, but I have to speak or translate in a different perspective that he understands it as well. So it's like understanding each other on a different level. And the harmony, or like the conversation that we have then, is deeply enlightening for myself. Like, I'm learning so much out of that, and of course, like, out of my own relationship that I have and my own children that I have some ideas or my own perspective to share with. And yes, that's a little bit of what I'm offering. If you are curious to have a birth chart reading and never have had one, then I really recommend you to have one with me, or there are many astrologers out there. Reach out, ask them when they're free, how much does it cost, and give them the three information that they need so they can give you a birth chart reading. So I hope this has been helpful for you to understand actually what is a birth chart reading, how does it look like, and understand a little bit more my specific approach. I will make more videos for you in the future to make you understand the birth chart, consciousness and awareness better in the future. So thank you so much, and see you next time. Take care.